Thank you very much. First, to Pastor Simmons and First Lady Simmons, thank you for having me. And thank you for meeting me all those years ago. Happy 33rd anniversary. Doesn't take long, does it? Seems like it was just yesterday, doesn't it? Congressman Bishop was talking about those 32 years. And you former State Representative Calvin Smyrie is with him, and we all been together. We started then. Calvin served 48 years in the Georgia legislature. And I will date myself now, that's just one less year than I've been married. We had our 49th anniversary this week, Hillary and I did. And I said, how am I doing? She said, you're getting better. Reverend Horton, thank you for the wonderful, wonderful sermon. You have great gifts and you have used them well. That's what we're all supposed to do, isn't it? This is a very strange time. Georgia's long time been a close call. I won here in 1992 by 13,000 votes. And the decisive event of the Georgia election was a rally in a high school football stadium on the weekend before the election, attended by the then Governor Zell Miller, the then Senator Sam Nunn, and my great friend Hank Aaron, who just passed a few years ago at the age of 86. He's the sort of leader I think we need more of. He never tried to bring attention to himself. He didn't really brag. He just hit more home runs than anybody ever did. And he didn't need any pills to help him either. He just kept himself in shape, got up, played by the rules, and won the match. So he shows up at this rally. There were 25,000 people in the crowd, and I carried Georgia by 13,000 votes. And for the rest of his life, every time he opened his mouth, he told people he made me president. And I say that because, and his wife, Billy, remains a friend of mine today, that we used to be happy warriors. We used to be willing to meet each other on the field of argument and reason. Today, nobody believes anybody else anymore. Nobody knows what's true or not. Everybody just makes all these claims. I saw the other day after the terrible storm hit our neighbors in North Carolina. Congresswoman Green, I think, said that the deep, dark state had found a way to make tornadoes hit only red areas and leave the blues alone. I thought, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, some things are still in God's hands. Some things are beyond human understanding. But that's what she said. And I noticed last night one of those television comedians was making fun of this and said that a person that he was pulling for who was running against Senator Cruz in Texas, Colin Allred, who's a former NBA player, he said, I think we found the answer for Colin to win. He should just run ads saying, I can control the weather. Last time we froze out, Senator Cruz ran to Cancun, Mexico. I can control the weather. Now, we're laughing about this, but it actually is not bad, and we might could win the election with it. But I remember a time when politics was about argument and feeling and trust, and we were slowly working toward playing by the same set of rules. That's all on the ballot this time. So I want to plead with you. I don't know if this will be my last election or not. I met the pastor's mother, and she told me she was 98 years old. You never want to accuse a lady about lying about her age, but that was sort of hard to believe, but she made me feel young again. You know, like I might have a future, but I'm out here working in Georgia, and I'm going to North Carolina. I'm going to all these swing states for my 3 grandchildren. And when the pastor's handsome grandson came up to sit with me, make sure the old boy wouldn't get lost, I wished I had my grandchildren here. That's what I think about. Every election is important, but this one really does belong to them. And no less than President Eisenhower, a Republican, said at a time when he was in office and was very discouraged about the influence that the first of the great blamers, Joe McCarthy, said about the war. You know, he said there was communists everywhere and we were all going straight to Hades in a handbasket. Eisenhower said, I don't know if we can keep this democracy going. It requires so much discipline, so much faith, so much resistance to the kind of stuff that flies around. And, you know, that's being tested now. There's the builders and the blamers. They're the uniters and the dividers. And I could fill virtually this whole gorgeous sanctuary with the studies that have been done for decades showing that cooperation beats conflict, that diverse groups with different lives, different experiences, different wells of knowledge make better decisions than lone geniuses or than people who are all taught to think alike and march in lockstep and to get in line. Here's what I can tell you. You gave me the chance to be president. I get up every morning and still thank God that I had it. I love doing it. It's a good thing we had that 2-term limit, or they would have had to carry me out in a pine box, or you would have had to beat me. But we do. And the rules are there for a reason. And I support the 2-term limit because even people who love the job should have a limit to it. That's what keeps democracy working. You agree with that? So now we've got a choice between a remarkable woman who Hillary's known for 30 years and I've gotten to know well in the last few years, with a fascinating husband whom I like and who's been a good friend of my son-in-law, and Governor Walz, who makes me feel like my high school science teacher, and who's given his whole life to education. We got a choice between them. And not just President Trump, but his idea of a young leader is somebody who is just always a yes man. What do you want, Master? What do you want me to say? And in this church, we do recognize that ever in human history, there's only been one person that was without any flaws, without any sin, deserving of total loyalty. Right? So when you see somebody in politics telling you that the only thing that matters to me is absolute total loyalty, what if I say 2 and 2 is 6? You say yes. We have to ask ourselves, is that consistent with the scripture that most Americans say they try to follow? I can tell you that there are many practical issues here. Can we get control of inflation and still keep growing the economy? All I can tell you is, based on a lifetime of experience as a governor and president, I think that Kamala Harris's plan is half as expensive and twice as good. It'll do twice as much good for half the cost. On health care, we still got a lot of unfinished business on health care. First, she worked through the Inflation Reduction Act, which President Biden sponsored, to get insulin prices for people with diabetes down to $35 a shot, to get drug bills for people on Medicare down to $2,000 a year, and has now got plans and set aside funds to provide those benefits to everyone. Now, that's a big deal if you know anybody with type 2 diabetes, which is rampant in much of the country. That's important. The other side wants to repeal what they derisively called Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. I think it matters. We're the only country in the world with an advanced economy that lets people charge poor people whatever they want to for medicine. Every other country has some sort of system for making sure that the drug manufacturers can get the money they need to keep doing work and, researching and finding new drugs, but protects people that have to have the medicine stay alive today. That's a huge difference. It's a big difference in the environment. One candidate said to all the old energy companies, if you'll give me $1 billion, I'll get rid of everything President Biden has done. Look at these last two storms. Look at all the fires out west, the wildfires. This climate is changing, and we have to stand against it. We have to recover the earth. So whether it's jobs, whether it's education, housing. Kamala Harris has got a plan to help people move into houses, give them a $25,000 head start on their down payment. Why is that a big deal? Because when we were in COVID and all these businesses closed down, there developed a housing shortage because people thought, well, things are going to be bad. It takes time to build back the houses, right? So she's got a plan to give people incentives to build more housing that's affordable and then to help people move in. The other side is a plan to give people in my income group and up another tax cut. We don't need it. We don't need it. I live in a county in New York now, outside New York City. It's got pretty high property taxes. But we also have the highest amount of green space of any more urban county in America. And I like the fact that all these poor working people who can never afford a vacation can go to a park in our county and take their children and see the seasons change and get out there with the wildlife and do all that because the rest of us who can pay do. That's the way the schools work. We should get over ourselves and stop pretending that we don't need to do this together. Now, what's all that got to do with you? Well, all the experts in both parties say that this election's coming down to 7 or 8 states, one of which is Georgia. And starting on Tuesday, October 15th, you have early voting. And I loved it, seeing all these young people and not so young people come up and join the church. For the next few weeks, we have to follow the scriptural admonition to render under Caesar's the things that are Caesar's. We got to show up. I've looked at all these, look, I'm just telling you, this whole election and the future of the country is turning out to be what people who were sort of on the fence about voting are going to do in the next 3.5 weeks. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. You may not think it's bad, but I mean, if you're one of them, don't feel guilty or anything, but the whole future of the country's on your back. And if you wake up wanting to sleep in on election day so you don't have to go vote, you'll have to live with that. So since it's on your back, you might as well make up your mind what you want to do and go do it. And so I'm pleading with you about that. If you can vote early, vote early. If you have friends or family members or coworkers or neighbors that hadn't decided whether to vote, talk to them about it. Ask if you can help them. America is the best positioned country in the world for the next 30 or 40 years. I thought about it again, having that beautiful drive down here from Columbus. It's pretty, isn't it? And there's still a few little tufts of cotton you can see in the field. And I thought, we are so lucky. But to those to whom much is given, much is expected. And we got to stand and deliver here. America, we're going to get by this inflation thing. That happened because when COVID happened, it shut down all the supply chains. It happened in every country. And it happened here. Then 27 states raised the minimum wage so people could have enough food, money to buy food. It's a good thing they did, but it didn't lower prices. Then we had a president and a vice president, I'm glad to say, who didn't want Americans to have to wait as long as we did after the crash in 2008 to get back to full employment. But that won't lower prices either. However, we did have lower inflation than almost every other country in the world with a rich economy the whole time. And now we've had over a year in which prices have gone up less than incomes have. Over a year. And finally, the Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates, which is going to take down all kinds of payments, car payments, college loans, you name it. We're going in the right direction. We're going to be at 2% or less inflation. And when President Biden leaves office, he will have presided over the largest amount of job growth in any four-year period in the history of the United States of America. So I'm just telling you, I hear all this doom and gloom. We ought to be happy. We ought to say, we have been given a chance to make a new future, to create what Kamala Harris calls the Opportunity Society. That's what we want. Just give us a chance, for goodness sakes. Play with the same rules. Give everybody the chance. Intelligence and the willingness to work are evenly spread across race and region and income, but the opportunities are not. We still have to close those opportunity gaps. It is not close. Uniting people and building, being repairers of the breach, as Isaiah says, those are the things that work. Blaming, dividing, demeaning may get you a bunch of votes at election time, but they don't work. You know it and I know it. Your country needs you. Your state needs you. Your community needs you. Your family needs you. And my grandchildren need you. I hope you'll be there. God bless you and thank you.